Hi, I'm Tim Sullivan. At the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, we work to drive New Jersey's economic growth and innovation to help build stronger communities within the state. That's why we're proud to support programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation.
Funding for this edition of State of Affairs with Steve Adubato has been provided by Seton Hall University. Come see what great minds can do. Valley Bank. The New Jersey Economic Development Authority. Hackensack Meridian Health. NJM Insurance Group. Choose New Jersey. Our mission is attracting companies to the Garden State. And by ADP, a comprehensive provider of human resources technology and services. Promotional support provided by Meadowlands Chamber, building connections, driving business growth. And by NJ Biz, all business, all New Jersey.
Welcome to State of Affairs. I'm Steve Adubato. We're coming to you from the Agnes Varis NJTV studio in Newark. It is our honor and pleasure to introduce for the first time on State of Affairs, Beth Simone Noveck. She's Chief Innovation Officer for the great state of New Jersey. Good to have you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Now, is this, by the way, we're doing a whole series on the future of innovation. Check out our website, which will come up. You can see all the programs we're doing around innovation. There is a government post about innovation, A, and B, is it the first time ever?
It's the first time ever for New Jersey and one of the first states ever to have a chief innovation officer, so yes.
Why have we waited this long to do this?
Oh, well, a lot of states, haven't done this yet. Many people haven't done it. We've thought for a long time, I would say at least a decade, about the importance of technology in government, making sure that we have computer systems that work, websites that work, that we have effective cybersecurity, and we do all of that in this state as well. But the idea of a different role, a role that really thinks about how do we use technology, data, and innovation to achieve our core policies, be they economic development, educational advancement improvement, better health care. I think there's an important role for technology and innovation and data to play in helping to advance our policy priorities as well.
Now, you have national and international experience as well. What always fascinates me, and I tried to study this and understand it from a basic public policy point of view, but when the healthcare.gov website did not work in October of 2000 and, I don't know, check the date, 10, 11. I thought to myself, wait a minute, there's a policy, but for the policy to work, the website had to work.
Absolutely.
It didn't work. There were a lot of snafus, and I thought, I often think about this, what did people in government, around government, learn from that? And what does it have to do with the future of innovation technology?
I think you're absolutely right that the healthcare.gov debacle, if we can call it that at the time, while a terrible thing, was in fact a crisis that we've taken advantage of.
How so?
Well, of course, we saw at that point that you can't think about technology as an afterthought. You can't wonder about how do we write the legislation and then only later think about how do we implement it in practice. You need to have the lawyers and the technologists, the data scientists and the policy people sitting down side by side at the same time to talk about how do we use these new tools that are available to us to actually implement the intent of our legislation, first of all. And second of all, there are many things that we can do without legislation where we can simply create better tools, better apps, more available data that helps to achieve the same purpose.
One example.
So one example, right now in the state of New Jersey, we do have legislation and appropriations around better workforce development. But at the same time, one of the things that my office is doing together with the Department of Labor and Workforce Development is thinking about how do we put tools in the hands of the unemployed, especially the long-term unemployed.
Tools. You keep using saying tools. What do we mean by that?
Tools. Well, we're talking about things like a reminder on your mobile phone that tells you what do you need to do today to help improve and accelerate your job search. We don't have to send people, though it's useful to send people also to a place, an office, a government office in the state of New Jersey. But given the technology that we have in our hands, imagine the ability to give somebody virtual counseling and mentoring via their phone or via their computer from somebody who has expertise in their field, who has expertise in job searching, and can help bring you that service where you sit. Imagine using your mobile phone or your watch to tell you, hey, get off the couch today and do your resume. Get off the couch today and network with people.
That's
giving
the role
you those
of government?
reminders.
That's the role of government to drive that?
So I get the implication of the question, which is that a lot of this technology comes from and is developed by the private sector.
Yes, but what's the role of government if the private sector is responsible for developing it, R&D, the role of government is?
So the role of government is, I think, a number of things. Number one, making sure that these tools are accessible and affordable to everybody, not just affordable to the people.
That's a policy question.
It's a policy question. It's a practical question,
Economic
which
question.
is, if I'm a software company, I may be interested in selling my tools to the people who can most afford to buy them or watch my advertising. From the government standpoint, we want to ensure that everybody has access to these benefits and these tools, not just people who are in the 1% or the 10%, number one. Number two, making sure that we have wide distribution. And number three, I think making sure that the tools that we develop and design are really serving the needs of the people, not simply serving the needs of the companies who design them.
Beth, let me ask you this. Our production company, together with our colleagues and friends in public broadcasting, have lots of relationships, partnerships, collaborations with higher ed institutions.
Yes.
You do as well. What's the connection between higher ed and innovation in the state?
Well, we have, first of all, one of the most educated states in the nation. We have a tremendous number of educated people, particularly in sciences and in engineering. We have great talent. In fact, the greatest asset we have in the state are the residents of the state itself. And those people are often in our universities, whether they're faculty or students or staff. So in fact, after I leave here, I'm heading to one of our universities in the state, precisely to go talk about how we can take the supply of talent in the university, students, faculty, et cetera, and match that with the needs and demands and challenges that we have in the state. So a lot of what we're trying to do, knowing that we can't, from a small office sitting in Trenton, that we can't do everything ourselves, is to connect the talent that we have to the challenges that we're facing. Just one quick example also.
Sure.
Last year, on the same day that I took office last August
2018.
August 2018, is that right? Yes.
Does it seem longer? I'll leave that alone. Go ahead.
It seems shorter. It seems shorter and longer, depending on the day of the week. We also launched a project called Research with NJ that my colleagues... Research with NJ. Which is a catalog, essentially, beginning to be all of, not there yet, but a large number of faculty experts, academic experts across the universities of the state, in an effort to give greater access for companies, for government, and for universities themselves to that talent across universities. So whether I'm a professor working on, let's say, smart cities that wants to find colleagues to collaborate with to apply for a grant across universities, or I'm a company looking for a faculty expert, the idea is to use technology to make that expertise more accessible and more available. And that's some of what my office does, is try to go around to our universities and to link the talent that we have, the very innovative talent, and match that to opportunities.
There is a program called the New Jersey Innovation Skills Accelerator.
Yes.
Is that what it is? Training program? I mean, it's got a long title. What is it, and why does it matter to people watching on State of Affairs?
In just this month, in June, we launched something called the Innovation Skills Accelerator. This is a free program online aimed first at the workforce of the state of New Jersey, but available to everybody, whether they work for towns or cities, whether they're in the private sector, universities, or just individuals sitting at home. It's an introductory course to thinking about how do we use new technology, how do we use data, how do we use new ways of working and thinking, like consulting with people, asking people, talking to residents, to change how we work for the better in order to solve problems more quickly. The goal of this is to ensure that our 70,000 public servants in New Jersey, first and foremost, are using new technology to become more effective at solving public problems, working with and talking to and collaborating with residents, and using data.
Beth Simone Noveck is Chief Innovation Officer in the state of New Jersey. This is part of a series we're doing on the future of innovation in the state and nationally as well. Check out our sister program, Think Tank. We'll deal with it nationally as well. Beth, I want to thank you for joining us. Thank you. Stay right there. This is State of Affairs. This is NJTV. We'll be right back.
To see more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at stateofaffairsnj.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD. And follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. We're, in fact, coming to you for a State of Affairs special segment in the northern section of Camden. We're actually coming to you from the Camden Lutheran Housing Operation. We're pleased to be joined by our good friend Kris Kolluri, CEO, Cooper's Ferry Partnership. Good to see you, Kris.
Good to see you, Steve.
You know the Camden community very well. What's going on today that is different from just 5 years ago?
Three things. One, the neighborhoods in Camden have never been more safe than they've been today, at least going back 50 years. Number two, the K through 12 education system is more stable than it's been in recent memory. Just to give you two quick examples, graduation rate today is 69%. In 2012, it was 49%. So and the third thing is the number of companies that are moving in here are more than they've ever been, and that is primarily because of the tax credit program, but equally important, there is a belief among residents and business leaders that this city is at an inflection point, a good inflection point.
You know, to be clear and to clarify things, Cooper's Ferry Partnership that Kris will explain is involved in a lot of development. Our team's going to go out and shoot some footage of some of those projects. What is the initiative? How long has it been around, and what are we going to see?
Cooper's Ferry Partnership is a private nonprofit. We're a community development and economic development nonprofit that's been around for 34 years. We have been the primary nonprofit, along with others, that work with foundations, governments, and corporations to make sure things like park projects are built, road projects are built, and to make sure that we provide a platform for companies to move into Camden.
Okay, so how hot is, okay, you get an economic development thing going on, there's a lot of activity, you're gonna see that footage, but we're in the northern section of Camden. As we walked onto the street, there's a jackhammer working, we tried to get them to stop, but they said, no, we got things to do, this is Camden, we're trying to build the community. This is a particularly challenging area, economically disadvantaged. We're actually doing an initiative with our friend Pino Rodriguez, who heads up the initiative, the Block Supporter Initiative. Not as big as yours as a nonprofit, but they're making a difference block by block.
But that's the story about Camden. This isn't about one individual or one organization that is helping the city move forward. It is a collective effort. The bottom line for people on the ground is this city and the residents of this city, like Pino Rodriguez, have never lost faith in where the city can be. And the fact that we're able to realize the dreams of generations that have not seen the prosperity reflects on the commitment by individuals across a broad spectrum, whether it is political, whether it is business, or whether it's resident-driven programs like the one that Pino is heading. That's what's making a difference. So what I'm suggesting to you is, unlike perhaps other cities in the state, there is no daylight between political leaders, business leaders, and residents on what needs to happen in the city to make sure it becomes more prosperous.
Kris, let me ask you this. Crime is a serious issue in this community. Public education, a serious issue and challenging in this community. With the crime rate being what it is, and it is in fact technically going down, we'll talk about that more, but the education system, again, improving, but not where it wants and needs to be. Graduation rates, not where anyone wants them to be. How challenging is it to engage in successful economic development with the crime situation and the public school situation?
I think the focus really has to be on intergenerational poverty.
What does that mean?
That means you have to make sure that the fundamentals of the city are working. That means we got to make sure the neighborhoods are safe. You got to make sure that people have an opportunity to succeed both in getting an education and in getting a job. That's how I think you build a stable community. The fact that the progress that has happened in the last 5.5 years is measurable and it has been meaningful demonstrate that we are at a very special point in this city. And I want to be clear, from 1968 to almost 2007, the city was socially and economically isolated. That is
define isolated.
As in the only investments that were coming in were the state deciding to build a prison on the waterfront. The only investments that were coming in were what I would call socially unacceptable investments. That was what was happening then. And what I'm suggesting to you is the residents have always had a belief that this city deserved the kind of opportunity that we're finally seeing. That's how you get the crime rates down. That's how you make sure you build an education system that reaches every child in the city. And that's what I think is happening. So this isn't a trend line. This is an absolute data-driven analysis that points to objectively where the city is today and where it's going.
So you speak about where it's going, Kris. You know the city better than most. 5 to 10 years from now, describe Camden.
I think.
And by the way, Camden has lots of different communities.
That's right.
Describe Camden in its totality 5 to 10 years from now.
So I think 5 to 10 years from now, two things are going to happen. One is the state currently subsidizes most of the city and the school district to the tune of 75 to 80%. I actually think within 10 years or soon thereafter, you're going to see a stabilization of the tax system, which is, as you know, foundational to making sure any system, any city survives and grows.
What you mean is that the ratables will be there.
That's right, because the businesses that are coming in are going to begin paying property taxes that there is no, as I said, for 50 years, there weren't any tax-paying entities that were moving into the city. So the city became more reliant on state government. So what we're suggesting is, for once, we're building a foundation for taxation and to make sure there's revenue attached to it.
You bullish on Camden?
I am. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. Otherwise, the commitment that the residents have made wouldn't be realized. And that's the thing that I want you to take away from this. Folks like Pino and the folks like the Betsy at Camden Lutheran
We'll be
Housing,
talking to Betsy in just a couple minutes. Go ahead.
right? They are the people that are driving the change, and I think it's often lost because it isn't quite. It doesn't get the kind of amplification that other projects perhaps get. But it is huge because if you're able to change the narrative on a neighborhood level, then you change it on a citywide level. And that's what the promise of the city is.
Thank you, Kris.
Thank you.
To see more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at stateofaffairsnj.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD. And follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
Once again, we're joined by our good friend Carlos Rodriguez, President, CEO, Community Food Bank of New Jersey. Tell folks, Carlos, what the food bank is and why it matters so much.
Well, the food bank is the primary fighter against hunger throughout New Jersey, and we're doing it two ways. First, making sure that we can take care of that immediate need for food, but also looking and trying to solve why that need exists in the first place.
So let's do this. We're doing this program in the summer of 2019. Summer hunger is?
Summer hunger is over 400,000 children in our state that rely on school meals, whether it be breakfast or lunch, and during the summer, those meals are gone. So families are working hard, not having that school breakfast or school lunch that they relied on or counted on during the school year, and now have to fend for themselves during the summer. The impact is, you know, our response is more of 100,000 meals every summer that we're helping to produce, and creating awareness around where those meals can exist in areas of high need.
You know, and I'm curious, you and I were talking right before we got on the air, that, and by the way, we're involved in a public awareness initiative with the Community Food Bank to talk about food insecurity and related issues. One of the things that struck me, and some of our higher ed partners and folks we work with at Seton Hall and also at Berkeley, is that, you know, food insecurity affects college students in a certain way. A, how are college students affected? And B, what are colleges doing together with the food bank to deal with it directly to help their students?
Well, I mean, first, you have to think that 900,000 people in New Jersey are in need of food or food insecure.
8+ million folks, 900,000.
Exactly. That's close to 10% of the population. That's almost everyone. So to realize that there is need in college campus shouldn't be a surprise. Hunger exists in every community and throughout every demographic in our state.
Whose responsibility is that?
That's all of our responsibility. It's private sector, it's charitable sector, it's government sector coming together, because our state will not thrive if hunger exists.
So some colleges are, in fact, they have food pantries right on campus, right?
So since about 2014, we've been working with various colleges to help them start food pantries, to support the food pantry, and to help them understand what else can be done for their college population. Many students just struggle, especially first-generation students, just to get into school and to manage the reality of and the balance of paying for going to school and paying for life.
How do you get them to do it? Because I know the Berkeley folks, actually in Newark, on the Newark campus, literally a mile from here, have it. How do you get them to do it?
Steve, it starts with awareness, and in many cases, the awareness comes from within. So once we started promoting, I mean, we learn everything from talking to our neighbors. So we found a neighbor that was in college going to local pantries. One thing led to another about 5 years ago, and now we have over 16 programs that we've helped start or support throughout the state.
How do you get students, because the other part of this is we found out there are community service initiatives where students are involved in what?
So most of
For
them,
example?
yeah, most of the college campuses have students that are involved either in food drives, helping to pick up the food, helping to actually run the pantry, and some of our more advanced models, you're helping to coordinate services within those pantries. Because chances are, if you're in need of food, there's probably other things you're eligible for and are not aware of.
Well, let's talk about this whole question, because we're talking about these food problems, and I'm looking at my notes because Jackie Heyer and I were talking about this, and we're like, how do we have this huge problem with food insecurity? There are so many people struggling to find healthy food, and then you got food waste.
That's exactly
Make
right.
sense of that for us.
Well, because the problem of hunger in our community and our society even is not a lack of food. It's a lack of access to food. And so there's this disparity that we actually have a lot of food. We actually have food waste as a byproduct of that. What we don't have is people with the financial means to go and shop when the food is ready and consumable. So one of the things that we do is make sure, and we've been in this business for over 45 years, the anti-food waste business, making sure that before food becomes waste, we can rescue it and we can put it in the hands of our New Jerseyans who need it most.
You know, you're a nonprofit, we're a nonprofit, NJTV is a nonprofit, but we have to run lean, right? We have to raise money all the time. Talk about the role that you and your organization have to play when it comes to getting corporations to care about this when they're saying, wait a minute, we got bottom line issues, we're a publicly traded company sometimes, we got stock price, and then you're saying I got to be involved in community food bank. Talk about that.
Well, the great news is in New Jersey, if you're a major corporation, you're involved with the Community Food Bank of New Jersey. And you should be, because you're not going to have a thriving workforce, you're not going to have a consumer base, you're not going to have an educated population if they're hungry. All of these things, if you think about the fundamental basic thing that food is, you're not going to develop if you're a child, you're not going to learn whether you're an adult, young adult or a child, and you're not going to have the strength to be the smartest workforce that you can be. So this is very much an issue that crosses across all sectors.
And by the way, Valley, one of the folks that are doing that actually helped create an initiative?
Yeah, Valley, one of our newest funders and partners, and they came in to support our workforce development initiative.
What does that mean?
That is, we have a 15-week program where we teach adults life skills and culinary arts while they're learning, and then they get job placement. And while they do that, they help us prepare the meals for the after-school programs and the summer meals programs we spoke about.
Because how does what we're describing right now and other initiatives actually help the quote-unquote root causes of hunger and food insecurity?
Well, our workforce development piece is clear. So we're not just providing the food, we're doing the proverbial teach you how to fish. And then, with job placement rates is over 90%, the impact is big, not only for the individual, but for the community as well. The other thing that we do is we connect families with resources. So SNAP outreach is something that
Tell folks, SNAP is the
SNAP is formerly known as food stamps, right? That's the easiest way to describe it. And so many working families and individuals are eligible and don't know that they're eligible because it's primarily designed for working families. But when you fall in need, all of a sudden, the last thing you think is that program is for you.
Before I let you out here, we talked about the problem on college campuses and other places. Young children. We have an initiative called Right from the Start NJ that looks at infants and toddlers and the challenges they have, the things they need. How do these issues affect that population? By the way, put up the Right from the Start NJ. Here, team's already 6 steps ahead. Go ahead.
So 1 in 7 children suffer from food insecurity in New Jersey. In counties like Atlantic, Cape May, and Cumberland, it's as high as 1 in 5 children don't know where the next meal is coming from. So if you think about a child who goes to school on an empty stomach or wakes up on an empty stomach.
How can he or she learn?
Well, exactly right. How do they develop during those early developmental years? So it's a critical part. It's really the fuel that helps us grow, that helps us be as productive individuals in our society. And we all have a vested interest in that.
A few seconds left. Do you sense, Cause, that we're more committed, we care more than we have in the past? about these issues?
I'm
A few
hopeful.
seconds.
I am absolutely hopeful. We have commitments from the private sectors, from individuals, and now from the government sector. We have renewed interest. Very proud to be working with our legislature and our governor on a slate of bills that are comprehensive in their approach and making sure that there's funding available. But there's a lot of work to do.
Absolutely, and there's also a lot of programming to be done on this. Carlos will be back in late 2019. Give us an update. Talk about those legislative initiatives. Carlos Rodriguez, President and CEO, Community Food Bank of New Jersey. Thank you for joining us on State of Affairs. I'm Steve Adubato. This is NJTV's Agnes Vera studio in Newark. We'll check you out next time.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 30 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of State of Affairs with Steve Adubato has been provided by Seton Hall University, Valley Bank, the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, Hackensack Meridian Health, NJM Insurance Group, Choose New Jersey, and by ADP. Promotional support provided by Meadowlands Chamber and by NJ Biz.
NJM Insurance Company has been serving New Jersey policyholders for more than 100 years. But just who are NJM's policyholders? They're the men and women who teach our children, the public sector employees who maintain our infrastructure, the workers who craft our manufactured goods, and New Jersey's next generation of leaders, the people who make our state a great place to call home. NJM, we've got New Jersey covered.